welcome. We are here with the podcast, How to Buy a Home In, and I have this amazing group here. We are outside of Austin, Texas, outside in Dripping Springs, and then we're going to get kind of hyper-focused on a neighborhood. So the idea about this podcast is we're going to get to know a very specific neighborhood here in Dripping Springs area. So you're going to hear a lot about from that. So I'm Clayton Bailey, host of the show, owner of Green Scene Home Inspections, and we are bringing this podcast on just all around because we want people to know that are thinking about moving here, like, what are the cool things about this place? And so there's some really neat things, and you guys have some amazing insights. So I'm really happy to have you here. First, we always have the show. We have our realtor, our real estate professional, right?
Hello,
and that's
everybody.
Stefan Benteler with Realty Austin. And then I bring somebody in that is involved in the real estate transaction, because those are the people that make it happen. So we've got Pamela Carroll with Austin Title. And then we have like a real estate service provider on the show, and that's somebody that helps Stefan sort of make things look good, and we literally have somebody today that makes things look good. So Dani Durner with Harden Interiors, happy to have you here today. So first, let's start out with Stefan. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate, so up until this point.
Well, it started in Chicago for me, and it was right before the first crash that happened here. And
was that the 08?
That was the 08 crash,
right.
Yes.
I wasn't sure. There was a crash in 2000, so I wasn't sure.
Back then I would never be able to own a home. And so I was following the market very carefully. And when the market did crash like that and I had some savings, I realized this might be my first entry into home buying.
Yeah.
And so I was a quick study. I bought my first home. It was a 2-flat. I was renting out the first story and living upstairs, and built a lot of equity through that time. And then I started buying other properties and started investing.
Okay.
And so I had been through probably a dozen transactions in my first 8 years of buying my first home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always find really good agents have been through the process like a lot, and then they're like,
Yes.
I can do this better than most people can. So very cool. So is that why you became a realtor then? Just because you knew you going through it so many times that you're like, I can do better.
It's interesting. Everybody
Not to slam the realtor that ever helped you.
No, absolutely. No, they were great.
Back in the day.
Absolutely. I had great mentorship when I was buying. I had great representation, and I saw how important that was. I immediately began to get investment properties, and then when I had, I started a roll on them, which is 1031 exchanges, and start going through all these very complex transactions.
Okay.
And so my friends and family saw that I was going through these very unique kind of real estate transactions, and so
Right.
they would start to call me and pick my brain, and I wasn't even licensed yet. And so I started to become the consultant and advisor for a lot of my friends and family, and basically everyone encouraged me to go get my license, and that I should be involved.
I have to say, like right off the bat, you're like, yep, I did this and I rented the other one.
Right.
So you've always kind of had that, it sounds like entrepreneurial spirit and like getting after it and doing the deal.
Absolutely.
I don't know, how old were y'all when you bought your first house, when you got your first place?
I was 24.
Okay.
I was 25.
25. All right. Awesome. So, and that's kind of, we're talking about that. That's a good demographic for the Headwaters community that we're talking about as well.
I'm not a millennial.
Right. I'm a Gen Xer. I've got my
Yes.
original Trapper Keeper.
I noticed
That's
that.
what I keep my
That's
notes
so
in.
cool.
So I've got like, my old school Trapper Keeper. I love it. And it's like
awesome.
retro style. So I'm an 80s kid.
And I'm right on the cusp.
So what is it that makes you unique when you deal with a buyer and or a seller?
Sure. What's important to me is to show my clients how I've arrived at where I'm advising them to go with their sale or purchase.
Okay.
So I really walk them through it. I do a lot of data research. I dive into their specific needs and their why, because everybody has a story as to why they want to move or why they need to move.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, right? We all share this life together and go through ups and downs. So understanding the why and then showing them how I've arrived to where what's going to get them to their goal, saving them the most amount of time, money, and stress. So those key things I focus on to help my clients.
So that you bring up a great point, which is the why, because I think it's important that you talk to them. There was a podcast that I just did where the agent that was on there, he sold a $3 million parking spot, or he sold a $2 million walk-in closet. He didn't sell a house or a condo unit. He was selling this lifestyle. And you hit the nail right on the head. You've got to have, this is the thing. What is your why? So kudos for you for doing that. What do buyers need to know when they're considering purchasing a home in the Dripping Springs area?
Well, first of all, they need to know that the school system here is A-rated right now. We have Texas rates their school systems A through F, and we're a 93. So that's an A.
That's awesome.
So we're seeing a lot of families coming out here for schools. The other thing is, it is a driving town. Drive times, you need to factor in where you need to be, whether that's the airport, if you're traveling to the airport a lot, or if you're traveling into the city for work, Lakeway, you just kind of want to know your drive times. And people move out here for more space. They want that hill country vibe and atmosphere. And so you can find that out here. You can definitely get bigger homes, more square footage, bigger backyards, and a real sense of community.
Cool.
So,
we'll kind of dig into that like in the fourth segment when we kind of talk more about the local area. But I just want to talk for a second about when you take on a buyer, or you're taking that person on, you already hit the nail right on the head. Like, what is your why?
Right.
But there's kind of a process, and if you don't stick to a good process, then you end up running in circles with somebody.
Right.
So how do you make sure that you're connecting with that client in the right way?
So I have a funnel process where we look at everything. I make sure that we look at new construction, we look at resales, we look at distressed properties. We'll look at everything. We throw it into the funnel, and it has to align with their goals and their criteria. My buyers feel in control when I take them through this process, because we start eliminating out of the funnel things that don't fit, and then we get to what's called a rolling top 3 to 5.
Okay.
And once we have that rolling top 3 to 5 properties that they're interested in, I'll take a deeper dive on those and show them, hey, did you know this one is really close to the highway? This one's maybe in the flight pattern. You're going to have a lot of airplanes going overhead. And so I help them quickly eliminate some more. And then we usually end up with those 2 to 3 that are just perfect. The ones for us to go take a closer look. Yeah. And then I'll pull all the information I can on those. I'll make sure they're not in flood zones. I do all the due diligence behind the scenes, present them with a lot of information, help them unpack that information. Yeah. And we're usually on the right track once we've gotten that far.
Nice. I love your approach and your tactic. That's what it's all about. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next segment. So we've got to talk about, what makes all of this stuff happen. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. We are at the Summer Revival Wine Company, which is a wine tasting room. It's a local here in Dripping Springs. We try to support local businesses, so they do natural wines. So it's more of a tasting room where they bring in their own wines, but they also do some food. But check out these pictures of some of the stuff they serve. We'll be right back.
Amazing food.
All right, we're back. Now, we've talked to Stefan about Dripping Springs, and we're going to come back to you. You had some cool things, and I didn't get to ask you like your cool real estate story, so be thinking about that here in just a second. But Pamela, Carroll, Austin Title. So what is your part in this whole transaction? But just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Austin Title.
So I have been doing this now for 20 years. Started when I was 10. Lie. Yeah, so got into the business, born and raised here in Austin. So very familiar with the Austin market and Dripping Spring and everything. And I just honestly have a background in culinary arts and fell into real estate. It was one of those things. My older sister was already working for the title company that we work for today. We both have been working there, the same Austin Title. And just, came back from school and decided to try something new. And she was like, well, try this. And I've stayed it and I've loved it ever since.
Awesome. So what, and I'm going to scoot your mic just a little bit closer
I'm sorry,
to
yeah.
you. No, it's okay. I'm going to scoot it like on the table just a little bit closer to you. There we go. We're good.
Yeah.
So what is the title company's role in the real estate transaction?
So
like what is it that you do?
We're the non-biased third party. So our part in it is that we are supposed to make sure that that we clean title. So there's nothing on there to have anyone come back and say that they have previous ownership of that property. There's no liens on that property. There's no debts that you might own. And so that is our job. We're an insurance company, which, you don't think you need insurance until you need it.
Right.
So that's our role in it.
And then what types of transactions does the title company get involved with?
So we do the whole gamut. So we work with commercial. We work with, if you've got an investor, obviously we do buyers and sellers. We work with landowners. We work with ranches. If you've got a real estate contract that you need to close, we will help you.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And so like for you, it's, you're kind of lining up because I know that's where the realtor gets paid, right? So you always see social media and they're always like, my realtor rocks at Austin Title,
The big key.
and they have like the thing, but we didn't take the picture with them at the home inspection when they're like looking at all the things that are wrong with the house and they're like, like what's going on?
Ours is a much happier process.
But for you, you've also got to deal with the lender,
Yes.
right? So you got to get the money, and I know that like wire fraud is one of those things that's out there that's rampant where somebody can imitate the title company and say wire the money over here because you're kind of the holding money for the paperwork, the money, the surveys, and then you have sort of like escrow officers and title people that sort of, attorneys that look over all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So how long does that process take?
Typically, you can get it. Honestly, it's really lender driven. So if you're a cash buyer that you're purchasing a property, we can close you within like 2 weeks, no problem. But if you are working with the lender, it takes longer. Obviously, there's a process to get more things done. And so we're the ones that are kind of holding everyone's feet to the fire when it comes to the contract and the dates and making sure that we get everything to the closing table by that date. So usually about 30 days if it's with a mortgage company involved.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we always notice that sort of as inspectors, like at the end of the month, the last few days of the month, it's like everything's at title. It's like we're kind of sitting around like it's not very busy. Like everything's in title. Like that's everybody's ready to do their thing.
They're all waiting on us.
Yes. So when buyers are purchasing a house, one of the things they have to do is put up earnest money, and then why does the title company get involved with like holding that earnest money, and what is earnest money?
So earnest money is really it's to protect the seller from losing if the buyer decides to get out of the contract.
Okay.
So we're the non-biased third party that's holding on to that money, and we give them a receipt of that. And so if that person does decide to get out of that contract, then the seller gets to keep that money.
Okay. So one of our stories that happened one time, and I'm going to ask you your crazy story next. But we had somebody that was out of country and they were buying a multi-million-dollar property.
Yeah.
Paid us, it was a very big house, so it was a very expensive inspection.
Right.
And they had written a check to title company for the earnest money.
Right. And
then they backed out of the deal and they said, well, we want our earnest money back. And it just so happened that the guy that was the seller, he was a Secret Service agent, and he got sent another check for earnest money with the exact same check number from this person again, and it was like, well, that's weird. That's strange. What's going on here? Well, they were sending fake checks to the title company. And then they had no intention of buying the property, but they were just trying to wash that money, so to speak, to like, so they could get that. They were just printing a check and saying, all right, we'll give you $8,000, because they were like, we'll throw down $8,000 earnest money and like, we'll do this. And then come to find out they accidentally just so happened, and then it was, this guy was a Secret Service, which is involved to the Treasury. And like, he had connections
They
that I was
picked
like,
the wrong person to be a fraudster too.
Person to be in front of. So, but it's that kind of stuff happens. And so I know when you email a title company, it's, in the bottoms of the emails, it says, wire fraud, be careful. And that's a real thing, folks. So just watch out for that kind of stuff. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
Not to me, but I read about it every day, and I see the realtor boards within my brokerage. We talk about it often, and it happps.
Yeah,
it does happen.
It really does.
So Pam, what in your years of business, what's been your craziest story?
I've got a lot of them, but you just mentioned one about someone being out of the country, which reminded me of a story of we had a person that went and closed on a condo at the W. It was $1 million condo. Closed it, everything's good to go. Well, come to find out, the wife, which was never discussed, said he was not married. Well, she was out of country. So she comes back into the country and goes back to her condo, and the key is not working, and she's very confused on why her key doesn't work. Well, because her husband had sold the condo out from underneath her and had no idea, right? So then we had to assume that and, obviously cover that loss for them. So yeah, and it's funny enough, we usually have claims about 5 years out. So it's not the immediate, 2-3 weeks after. It's usually about 5 years out that we'll get a call and be like, hey, my grandmother still has ownership in this property, or hey, there's this lien that's not mine. I don't know who it belongs to, but we've already insured it. So then therefore we have to pay out on it. And we pay tens of thousands of millions of dollars throughout the year to not our specific offices, but as a whole, as a company. So there are claims that go out.
Wow. So title companies, also insurance, to make sure that weird things happening. And then I'll ask you one more, have you ever had any weird sort of neighbor boundary, like, hey, there's this hill here where this is the post and this is the tree from my property, and
man, I've got this poor lender that has been himself has a neighbor that is a retired attorney that is just grumpy, and his fence is a little too far on his side, and so he has been keeping him in court for years about it, and they just keep on going back and forth, and it's a nightmare. But yes, we do have those issues that come up, and that is something you get extra coverage on at closing, that we will cover the meets and bounds. And I would say it's probably a good idea to do it.
Now, and Stefan, just kind of bringing it back to you, is that something that where you're maybe asking the listing agent, or if you're taking on a listing, if they have a survey is what you would figure that out with, right? So are you asking, do they have that? And then who orders that? Is that you that orders a survey, or is that?
We typically can, but if there's already a survey, then we can go ahead and just use the one that's been already done from previous. Unless there's been something added to it.
So I have to ask, because we're in, Austin, which is the capital, and it's the old country. Like, what's the oldest survey you've ever?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question.
Seen.
Gosh, I don't even know off the top of my head. I mean, I had one that went back like 15 years, so that's pretty. But I'm sure there's one that goes way further than that.
Back. Yeah, once they look at all of that stuff. So I always just think about this map that was written in 18 whatever says that this is the thing.
We do go back to the beginning of the property. So, we go through the whole chain of title. Some title companies will just go back from the last previous closing, but we'll go back to the very beginning of that. And so you can see some things. We did a closing one time that if they had just gone back just a little bit further, there was, they had closed, they were on a burial ground. And so burial ground, they had to have all those family members that were buried there to write off on that. So yeah, if you got to go way back to make sure.
Dang. Okay. Very interesting. That's awesome. So great stories. Thank you for sharing, and stick around, because I know you've got some more interesting insight about Dripping Springs area specifically. But Pam, how can we get in touch with you?
Gosh, you can call or email me anytime. Our information is all over the interweb.
Cool. Awesome. And we're going to flash that up on the screen here right now so that you see how to get a hold of Pam Carroll, Austin Title. But thank you for being on the show.
Yes,
and we'll be right back. We're going to kick it off this next segment. And then we've got a lady that makes everybody stylish and looking pretty. So we'll be right back. And then check out some more food from the local restaurant. Here it is. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So, Summer Revival Wine Company, tasting room. So, you got to see some of the delicious treats there. We're going to enjoy some of that here in just a little bit. But I want to hand it over to my next guest on the show. So, Dani Durner, you keep everything looking cool. And you have an interesting title because you're a lifestyle director. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm the lifestyle director at the Headwaters residential community where I live at. Stefan and I are both there. It's just a fantastic role. My job is really just to bring people together, bring the community together. I plan our big community events as well as our weekly, monthly programming calendar, and it's just such a good time because I am the target demographic there, so I really get our community and what the needs are.
Very neat, very neat. So now you also do like interior decorating design,
Yes,
right?
I am the owner of Heart and Interiors. I'm the lead designer there. I'm a one-woman show at the moment. I started that company last year, July 2022 is when I officially launched.
Very cool. And then just tell me, like, how do you take on like existing clients that have been living there and they're like, oh my gosh, I need a makeover, like help me look better? Or is it somebody that's like moving? Like, what's the best part for you to get involved in their life?
Well, a lot of my clients are from Dripping Springs. They're just moving in, they're from out of state, and so they've got these new builds that are sometimes builder grade. They were waiting till they closed,
Right.
to make it more custom. So a lot of my clients are kind of that demographic, and I work to make their homes just feel more like them, give it that personal touch.
Okay, cool. So do you work with a lot of new construction builders, or you wait until it's purchased and then?
Usually after the closing,
Okay.
yes.
But you probably know your builders and like
Yes,
which ones are in the area.
Very
and-
familiar with the builders and their marketing team. Just with my other role as a lifestyle director, I communicate with them pretty often.
So what, how do you take on, this is the big hard question, is how do you take on the budget? Like how do you set that budget for somebody to say, okay, well, this is what we have and you've got X amount of dollars and I got to furnish the whole place and tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of ties into my weird story, but I'll save that for the later part.
Okay.
I guess I'll just kind of walk you through my process with my clients.
Yeah.
A lot of it at this point is word of mouth, but I do have my social media things that I run. But I usually start with, people have been reaching out to me lately, which is fantastic.
Very cool.
I've got that inquiry form, and I start with an in-home design consultation.
Okay.
So I prefer to do in-home consultations, see their space, because really that is the most important step
Absolutely.
in my process. That's
Yeah.
when I'm building their relationship, I'm understanding their family dynamics, their lifestyle, their everyday. I mean, you can't design without that in mind. You can make
Absolutely.
things look pretty, but it's got to be functional for who the client is.
Yeah.
And so I'll deep dive with them into their home, talk about their goals, their spaces, their budget, which I have learned is a very important thing to set realistic expectations
Yes.
so that I know which vendors to source, what kinds of places to source from, so that they're happy and it's a very transparent process.
Yeah.
Yes, because having an interior designer is a luxury, not a need, you know, so gotta make sure.
and you got to like, all right, where are we at? Because I can shoot here or shoot here.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure you're not mad and shooting me. So where do we need to be on this? But I think you hit what Stefan said in the beginning too, which is, what is your why? And I think that's important to get to know people and what is your lifestyle and how many kids and are they going to practice or what types of things that are doing, because that's who they are and that's what this is all about. So I have to ask, just like latest kind of design trends, like what are you seeing? What's hot in? And I want to talk about inside and then outside, but we can start inside first. But like we're here in Dripping Springs, beautiful hill country, and I get so inspired just driving around here,
Yeah.
just checking it out. I can't imagine a day in your shoes. Like, wow.
I just love going into people's homes and seeing what they've done, looking at the trends. So, I mean, over the years, it's shifted a lot from that farmhouse. People think you go to the hill country, it's all farmhouse. At this point, it's really shifted a lot to the modern design. We have a lot of people from California moving in, bringing in that coastal, really fresh, modern take of the homes. And while some of the homes still look, Texas style with the rock, we are seeing a lot more like kind of the wainscoting, the stucco, that more modern trend, which is really nice and refreshing to see.
Yeah.
It used to be, beige, limestone. That's the end of it because
Yeah.
there's a ton of limestone here.
Yeah, it's all the Austin stone is everywhere.
Yes, that's why we don't have basements.
Yeah.
There's too much limestone.
There's too
Yeah.
much. There's no way it's gonna happen. So, any design trends like colors that are popular, or painting front doors certain colors, or
Oh
anything?
yeah, the
Okay.
moody tones are really in right now. Moody tones. Yeah, people
Okay.
are really loving that contrast of light and dark. A lot of that iron ore, Sherwin-Williams, kind of like blacks, grays, blues, something easy on the eyes. People want to come home and feel relaxed. You know, after, the pandemic, we're all starting to learn that your home is where you spend the most time. And so people are really wanting to invest in their spaces and make it functional and peaceful for their lifestyle.
Yeah. Are there any kind of appliance trends? Is there any sort of different types of refrigerators or dishwashers or anything that you're incorporating into your designs? Is that part of the conversation that you're having with people?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I mean, we're kind of getting away from the older appliances. There's just so many more aesthetic, beautiful ones now, like those cafe appliances, the hidden panel fridges, the hidden ovens and microwaves. People don't want to see their appliances anymore. They want to just see cabinets, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
So because the reason I asked that question was we're doing a home inspection. We have to say, okay, well, we don't typically inspect the refrigerator because it might not stay with the house, but then if it looks like it's part of the cabinet, we got to look at that.
Good luck finding it.
Yeah, right?
If it's a fixture.
We got to check that out. It's attached to the house. Then now we have to have that conversation. So we take a picture. But I've seen some really interesting sort of, the big countertop seems to be the big design where it has the
waterfall countertop. Yes, I've got that in my home. Absolutely
island.
love it. It really just pops in your home when you see it. It's really clean.
Yeah.
It's a really popular design right now. This is the waterfall.
Yeah, and then I'm seeing a lot of the sort of pop-out drawer microwaves in that little
Exactly,
waterfall
underneath.
because they want to get it off the countertop. They don't.
No, we want clear counter
clean it
space,
up,
clean,
it all up.
minimalize.
Yeah.
Yes, no
so
clutter.
For us, when we're inspecting the house, we've got to check all the outlets, and usually you can see all the outlets on the countertop. But when you walk in, you had a good designer when you can't see the outlets, and they're like, "Wait a minute, I know they're here," and then you're looking up under the cabinet, where is it? Oh, it's under the cabinet. And so they've done a good job.
Have you seen the
of
pop-out
concealing.
ones on the island?
Yes, those are
Where
really
you
So
push
cool.
down and they whoop.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then they've got USB chargers
Yes.
and cords. There's actually USB-C charging cords in it, so just little things.
Yes.
You're talking about lifestyle designs and things.
Yes, exactly,
Gotta
functionality.
have.
Smart home is very popular right now too.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be Google or Alexa. You don't want to actually flip the switch.
Yeah, I want to
Right.
say what it is.
Can't be
Make it
bothered by
the
that. Life
lights.
is busy.
So is that something that you incorporate into your lighting and
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. A lot of my clients are mostly smart homes at this point, so we make sure with the electrician that it works out the way they need it to, things like that.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So I have to ask the question: what is your craziest story?
So we're gonna
Now
go.
I'm scared because you're checking your notes. It's like she's got stories for
Oh
days,
man,
folks.
I've been in the business. Stefan and Pam have been in it for 20 plus years. I've been in it for almost a year. It'll be 1 year in July this year.
Okay.
But I do have stories, and it's with my first client. And you were asking me about budget earlier. And when you start your business, you'll take any client. You want to get your foot in the door. You want
Right.
to build your portfolio. So I had this client that wanted to do a guest room space, pretty simple, little refresh. She wanted an accent wall, but this client just didn't have the budget. I don't even think I asked her what her budget was. I was like, I'll help you.
Oh.
Yes. And so, she didn't want to hire vendors. And I thought, I've done a few DIY spaces. My first home was my DIY practice house. I could do shiplap. Sure, I'll try it. But she wanted me to paint an accent wall. And mind you, it's a crisp white room. She wants a very dark green wall. And I bought all the things. I prepped the space. I taped it off. And I was like, I got this. Paintbrush in hand, let it dry. As soon as I peeled off the tape, it was awful. Like the worst. I would be happy if that was my home. And she was a neighbor.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it took a lot for her to say, hey, I'm not loving this.
Yeah.
I was like, well, obviously it's terrible. And so of course I didn't want her to have to pay for my mistakes. So
Right.
that was just one of those learning curves
moments.
to ask,
Good for
what
you.
is your budget? So
Yeah.
I took the hit. I hired a painter to fix my mistakes and moved on. And I'm a designer, not a painter.
Yeah. So is that something that going through your process now, like when people throw out that color, is there a way that you're pre-visioning that for them? I don't know if you do anything digitally or.
Oh yeah, I make design boards and
Okay.
mood boards, color
Very
scheme. I build all that up together, but I make sure I ask their budget.
Yeah.
We can afford this. It's comfortable for you. I have vendors, from all different price points.
Cool.
And make sure to work with that for them.
So when you're bringing on, and I'm sorry, I'm so intrigued by everything that you do, but when you bring on new construction and you're having to go in there and design, because I know for a fact that builders just put in the quick, cheap thing, because they know that people are going to come and put in their own
Exactly.
light fixtures,
Yeah.
and so that can be a big budget, because you could get into some chandeliers and lights that are real pricey. So Do you approach it from a price standpoint with the client, or do you approach it from an aesthetic, like what looks do you like stand?
You know, we'll have like a collaborative Pinterest board, kind of see their style. I'll ask them, where do you typically shop for things? What is the budget? Because there's such a range. You know, you can have a 10,000 chandelier, or you can find a dupe online for $500 now. It kind of just depends what quality you really, really want. What do you want to spend the most money on? What do you want to invest in? Versus, okay, we can go a little cheaper on this.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. I love it.
And I call that the jewelry. So all the you know, you can
bling
swap
bling.
out the jewelry.
Yeah.
And so when I'm helping a client buy a home, a new construction home, sometimes I say, hey, if you want to save money, just go with all the level 1 builder grade nonsense. You're not going to like any of the fixtures. It's designed for you to absolutely hate them and despise them. And then you hire someone like Dani to help you swap that jewelry out with something that makes sense for you.
I mean, in my own home that I built in Headwaters, it's custom. You know, everything we loved, but I told my husband, you know, I don't like the light choices they have. Lights are my favorite. So we did builder grade lights, and then, you know, I went and sourced all the lights for our house. I wanted designer lighting, and that's what we wanted to do, and it really changes the feel of the home.
Nice. So is it all LED, all dimmable, all
smart home,
Alexa,
all of that,
do this
exactly.
thing?
Yep.
Nice. So funny story. We did the smart home in the my daughter's at School of Rock. She likes to do the band, and so I did the smart home bathroom exhaust fan. And so now my kids rickroll each other while they're in the bathroom. And so they'll walk by and say, Alexa, play. And so then it started, never gonna give you up. And so that they're like, dang it, Alexa, stop. So one of those fun things that Alexa can, or it's telling jokes while you're in the bathroom. So, and then when the parents visit, you're like, why is the fan talking to me? Like, this is strange. Like, it's doing the little Knight Rider thing. So, well, cool. Thank you for being here. We'll bring it back as well, because we're going to get into Headwaters, because I know you're big into the Headwaters community. So we'll talk more about some big events and fun stuff there. So let's throw it back. We're going to have some pictures of the Summer Revival Wine Company. So food and wine, all local sourced wine, food. So they try to use food vendors from here in the area for local cheeses and vegetables and that kind of fun stuff. So here, check out the pics. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So now we're going to really dive into the Headwaters community that's here in Dripping Springs, Texas. And we've got all of our local experts here, so we're really going to talk about, like, what's it like in the Headwaters community specifically. So, Stefan, I'm going to go with you since you're the main expert in the area. Just talk about what are kind of the defining borders of the Headwaters community? Like, what other communities are around Headwaters community?
Sure. So we are right off of 290, and we're just east of Route 12.
Okay.
We are a 1,000 home community.
Okay.
And it's on 1,300 acres now. We started off on 1,000 acres, and now we've added another 300 acres to that.
Okay.
So 1,300 acres, 1,000 homes that are going to be built on only 250 of those acres.
Okay.
Meaning the rest of those 1,000 acres are going to be left for hike and bike trails,
Nice.
green space. So
Very cool.
the developer is really trying to be good stewards of the hill country and the land. And so Headwaters is a very special place within the Dripping Springs community,
Nice.
especially for master plan communities.
Neato. So and then just what are some of the other communities around Headwaters specifically? So like the bordering.
So we do back up to Sunset Canyon, which is an
Okay.
older community.
Okay.
And then on one side, on the west side, and then on
Okay.
the east side, on the east side. And then on the west side, we have Founders and Big Sky Ranch.
Okay.
And we have a new community that's being built. And there's going to be, I believe, if my notes are correct, about 2,200 homes are coming in to this new community.
Okay.
And there's a lot of new communities that are in the planning phases right now.
All right, neat. And so I know you talked about schools. What size of school is here in for like all the kids that would go to the A-rated school? Is that like a 6A? Is that a 5A? Is it a big school? Is it a smaller school?
Dani is on the. We've been talking a
that a
lot
Dani
about
question?
the bond stuff. I don't know what the actual
Size is? Okay.
So Dripping Springs High School is
Yeah.
currently the only one for the area, but there's a
Okay.
ton of growth right now. So the bonds that are being proposed are to build a second high school, and then 2 more middle schools, another elementary school that would actually be in Headwaters, and expanding some of the current elementary schools.
All right, yeah. Okay, so probably a 6A because it's a big school.
Yes.
Awesome.
And we also we're really pushing to have our 5th elementary school built in Headwaters as well. So
Very cool.
we do have the land that has been secured by the city for that. So we're hoping that takes place this May on the bond.
Yes,
Nice.
we are.
Now, and you were trying to talk to me a little bit about there was another neighborhood, like just the style of homes. So I'm just interested to hear what you have to say about, because he kind of went around with like, this is an older community, and then you got Big Sky. So just tell us from a design standpoint about some of these other houses.
Of course, I'm biased to Headwaters, but aesthetically, I do love Bunker Ranch because they're an acreage community, but they also just have a modern, very California feel style homes. They've got those really modern black windows that everyone's wild about, and it's just so pretty. Clean lines on the exterior.
Okay,
Yeah.
neat. And then just talking about parks. So like, I love the fact that Headwaters is building in sort of the the trails and the walking community. Is there any other biking trails or parks, or like what are some of the other
what's
natural
super
pools?
fascinating is the city of Dripping Springs just bought a 300 acre pristine Texas Hill Country that is adjacent to Headwaters. So it's called the Rathgerber Natural Resource Park. And so they're putting some master plans together to make this a vibrant space for the Dripping Springs community as a whole to gather. So imagine picnics, camping, and perhaps some other things I'm unaware of. Have you heard anything about what
I can tell you it's going to be the size of Zilker Park, which if you're from Austin, Zilker Park is where it's at.
Yeah.
This is really
Yeah.
exciting for the Dripping Springs community. We just don't have anything like this.
Right.
I'm very excited to see what they do. I know they do want to leave that hill country natural vibe, but I do hope they put some play structures and some beautiful things, just like City of Austin does.
Very cool. So, and then just like anybody from Headwaters community, is there any specific like lake that they're going to go to and visit on a regular basis, or is it just sort of
I still think Lakeway is the lake
Yeah.
out here. That's the big body of water that most folks go to.
Okay. And then just talking about just big annual events, like what's the big show, the big production that happens that brings everybody out of their homes and everybody comes together as a community?
The
Like, what's-
Founders Fest.
The Founders Fest.
Yes,
So tell me more about
it
that.
is. It's been happening for years here, and it's incredible to see the entire community descend upon Mercer Street, which is our historical downtown district.
Okay.
And it is it's BYOB, so people are
Okay.
hiking in their stuff. It's really a trip. And there's so many, it's just our community that comes out and then they set up their grills, they're firing up their brisket, and everything is free.
Wow.
Everything is free. Now, there are sections of it where it's set up and there's vendors there selling their wares.
Right.
But for the most part, Founders Fest is all about celebrating community, bringing people together in Dripping Springs, and sharing.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's
And what
super
time of year?
cool.
When is this? What time of year is this?
It's
usually happen?
coming up
In April.
In April, yeah.
April?
Yeah, it's coming up
Okay.
in April, yeah.
Nice,
And then
very
the other one is the Dripping Springs Singer-Songwriter Festival,
Oh.
which is super cool. So that happens in the fall,
Okay.
and that is also a really, really great event. And it also happens in the historic district, Mercer Street. So those are my personal 2 favorites. Do you guys have any?
Do you all
You'll
have
have like
any?
every vineyard known. Because I feel like that's what Dripping had previous to all the development, was that it was all the vineyards.
All the vineyards.
Yeah.
So, and we're in a tasting
distilleries.
room.
Yeah.
Now, so the thing about this place specifically, though, is that they wanted to make sure that I emphasize that it was really local, natural grown
Yeah.
grapes. They didn't use a lot of pesticides. They're kind of the diamond in the rough for that. There's not a lot of other wineries in this area that are like that. So I thought that was really cool that they're outsourcing all that kind of fun stuff. But anything else cool event-wise that you like to partake in the Dripping Springs area?
Well, specifically with Headwaters, we do 4 signature events a
Okay.
year. We have 1,000+ people that come out. I love to partner with local distilleries, local breweries, and wineries, such as Summer Revival. And it's just a good time. People come here. They come to Texas to make community. They came, left their families just to make friends and family out here,
Yeah.
And so we do a fun Easter egg hunt every year. We do our
Fun.
Freedom Fest,
Neat.
which is like our 4th of July event. We had a big foam pit. open bar, super fun. You can come anytime you're in the area.
Wow.
Fall festival, we had a petting zoo.
Wow.
Yeah, and then for Christmas, we had train rides and snow and Santa. It's just so much fun to live in that
Move out
community.
there. It sounds
What
like
a fun community. That's super, super cool. So I have to bring it back around and just talk about like the age of home in Headwaters. So like what's the age period of home built?
I would say the average age is about 3 years old,
Okay.
because the community is 6 years old from when the first home was built in 2016 when they were completed. So we've got 6 years of construction that's been going. We have our 5th and 6th phases underway right now. So
Okay.
our last and final phase is actually all of the flat work and groundwork is going in. We have underground utilities, so
Okay.
underground electric and natural gas in the community. And so I can see them working their way through there and really doing a great job. And what I've been very impressed with, because I personally never saw myself living in a master plan community.
Yeah.
I'm more urban. And so this has just been, it's exceeded my expectations on so many levels, just how well they are stewarding the land and paying respect to the hill country. And it's just beautiful where we live.
So bringing it back to, I can't, it's like the inspector never stops. And
Sure.
so I'm always worried like what's, because I teach home inspectors and so I teach in the whole state of Texas. So
Yeah.
when I go to Houston and go down to Galveston, like they build differently. And so I'm always looking at like why they build things differently, right? Well, here, the great thing about dripping area is like the foundations are awesome. You're building on a rock. It doesn't move, where there's other
That's right.
parts of Texas that are just up and down and up and down. So, but, natural disasters, events that happen, there's really...
We're good.
You know.
We see these big weather events
knock
come
on
through.
wood.
We see big weather events come through, and they tend to go around our topography and miss us. That's not to say we do not get a lot of wind, because we do. We get a lot of wind. So
Yeah.
sometimes we find ourselves in a wind vortex or a wind tunnel. So I imagine that as the years go on, some shingles might be blown off roofs, gutters, things come loose off
Right.
of homes, some siding maybe. So things to keep an eye on. And I guess the other thing with the freeze landscaping, you want to protect your landscaping, because we are getting more freezes and people put a lot of money into their yards and landscaping.
Those big agave plants.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also water heaters and things like that. If they're tankless and they're mounted to the exterior of the home,
Yep.
those can freeze up. So any water or piping that is on the exterior of the home. But to talk about those three things is pretty minor, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was wanting to move to a place, hearing what he's just said, especially if you're coming from like California or whatever, where there's just earthquakes all the time,
Oh,
it's like
mudslides.
there's really not a lot going on. You're up here in the hills and it's like pretty quiet and big lots, and you've got a great, amazing community. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add to? Because you're a local Austin girl. You've been here for quite some time.
Yeah.
Why do you like it out here so much?
I mean, dripping is kind of, I feel like, it's kind of what I grew up with in Austin back in the day, right? I was an 80s child as well, but I mean, it's just this small town feel, even though it's a big city, So you have a big city, but you've got an acre lot and you have all these things as a family that you just really love. And just dripping has so much going on out here. I love this community, really. I come out here all the time for baseball. So we're out here like every other weekend. I feel like it's the only place where kids play baseball these days.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So there's a lot of land, like larger lots. I know there's like celebrities that live out here. I know that some of the celebrities have started sort of little businesses of breweries and wineries, and that's kind of the thing. You go down 290 and you see a Deep Eddy vodka, or you see another brewery, or
35 plus breweries. I mean, we're probably over 40, tipping the scales over 40 breweries, wineries, and distilleries, all within Dripping Springs proper or just on the outskirts. So it's really exciting to see that here, and they all are very family friendly. So you can bring your kids, you can kind of let them run loose, you can enjoy some wine or some food or some beer, and it's serene.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
The nickname is Drinking Spring.
That's right. Thank you. Drinking Springs.
That's
Yeah.
the nickname. Good
I
to
will
know.
say Deep Eddy Vodka from Headwaters is closer than our local grocery store H-E-B.
That's right. It's right across the street, and it's a fantastic Bloody Mary.
It's way better than going to a Spirits.
Yes.
Well, awesome. So I want to wrap this up, but Pamela, Carroll, Austin, Title, Dani, Durner, thank you for being with us, and Stefan Benteler, Austin, Realty Austin. So if you need the team and you're looking in Dripping Springs, here is the Rockstar team right here. Clayton Bailey, How to Buy a Home In podcast. We are out.
Bye.